back to Sticks and Strings. I'm Naomi.
I'm Beth.
I'm Eve.
And we're at my house today.
Will be for the near future.
Yeah. They're getting their house ready to move, and so their living room is a uproar. I think Eve's going first today.
Yes. Firstly, I finished my cross-stitch camp piece. This is Seahorse by somebody that I can't remember. And it's stitched on the fabric has like a very light modeling of brown on one side, tan, really, not brown, and on the other side it's plain, but it's a Hobby Lobby fabric, and I can't for the life of me remember what it's called. But when I was working on it, I was like, is that white? I thought I didn't pick a white thing, because before I started working on it, you could see the coloring in it a lot more. But
because it's a smaller piece, probably. Huh?
I think because once the color is over it,
it's so contrasted.
That's what really shows. Yeah. Anyway, I'm really happy with the way this came out, and I was just saying that the others, I think I'll use the same outside color because it works for ocean, but none of these colors lend themselves to crab, and starfish maybe, but you know, I can find other colors to use. DMC has a world of colors, and of course there's also you know,
when you were talking about that fabric, it reminded me of I can't think of her name now, but she does the her Flosstube. She used to live in Guam, and so then when she came back to the States, and she had entered a piece in the state fair, I guess, and the person who commented, like
Judged
put the notes in, he said something about, I think your fabric's dirty. And so the person, I'd tell him, no, it's modeled, that's the way it is now. Because he was expecting it to be white and pristine, I guess. And he thought she had gotten it dirty.
Okay, so one of my WIP-GO calls for June was Phoenix Biscornu by Tiny Modernist. And I'm stitching that on DMC Opal because I thought it looked like smoke. And I completely finished this side. And
including the back stitching?
Uh-huh.
Oh, neat.
And I started on the back side, and then I decided that I needed to give Underwater World some love, so I put it down. And now I'm like, I need to finish this because it's almost done.
Is that when you said one of your WIP-GO calls?
Uh-huh. The back isn't a whole lot of stitching, but you know, there is stitching, so I'm going to put it down for now, especially since most of my concentration has to be on packing. I think I'm going to need maybe 3 boxes just for my craft stuff. We're talking fabrics and different crafts and paints, and actually, I might need 3 boxes. I was just like, oh, I guess my stash is bigger than I thought. But, you know.
It is what it is.
This is what I enjoy doing, so. Okay, and the other call for this month is Stitchy Princess Underwater World. And last week, as I said, I had tried it. I tried to find fabrics that are similar to this green. And every fabric I tried it on, either I felt like the threads clashed with it, or I didn't like it. The threads didn't show up at all or whatever. And so I just decided to change the colors. So here we are so far. This is on DMC 14 count Malachite because I thought it looked oceany. I didn't do tons of work on it. I did work on it more than one day. I got the octopus was only about to here, so I finished the little dude, and I started on her hair. One of the problems is because I changed all the colors, I had to write on the back of the picture. I wrote on the back what the, I'm changing this to that and changing this to that. And that didn't mean I left them there in
the bag.
Yeah. And then the second problem is that I only have this pattern on my tablet, which means that the tablet has to be charged for me to be able to work on it.
Yeah. And the tablet has to be present.
Yeah, I was going to work on this today, but I forgot my tablet, so I charged it and everything for coming today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very sad. And then I did a tiny bit more work on the flowers. I stitched a little bit more down this way, and I got a little bit more done on the flowers.
Those are going to be so pretty. I can't wait. Finish it.
So this is what I'm going to work on because I have the
You
pattern.
could also just take that flower pattern and just make it by itself, a little pillow or something. It'd be so pretty.
Yeah, it would.
Oh, hey, there's creamsicle.
Is the kitty outside? Our outside kitty?
So I forgot to show the pattern. This is what it looks like. But I'm working on this bottom part that isn't part of the daily temperature stuff. And then
Oh man.
Stitch and Mommy's temperature turtles.
Are yours?
So I had to find an extra color.
Because it got extra hot.
It was 117 yesterday. And in some parts of the city it was hotter than that. And
It's awful.
the breeze that was blowing, you would think would cool you off. No, the breeze
It was
was
hotter.
hotter than the air.
Yeah.
And
I told Mark it's not just an oven, it's a convection oven.
yeah, it was impossible. Now, the color I chose was the hottest color here, this one, which is very similar to the hottest color that was given, but slightly darker. So, here's my turtle so far.
All red.
And this is only June.
I know. It's
What are we going to get up to 125 or something in July?
July, I know.
Because July is always hotter.
Yeah, and hotter for longer. But this June's been bad.
Now today
Today's better.
is much
Supposed to be
cooler.
better, yeah.
Yeah.
Might need a jacket.
Al-
It's 103 only.
Yeah, almost pleasant.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
honestly.
So anyway, that's
What's you?
yeah.
All right, I'm going to go second. So while I'm finishing this row, I will talk about why there's a Lego car. I was thinking of a title for this video, and I'll probably title it "What I Did on My Summer Vacation" or "Lazy Lego Summer" or something. Because my son Eli loves Legos, and he had this kit for a long time, and then he bought another one, and he's like, "I need to finish my car so I can do the truck." The truck is really cool. He got it at Costco. It's like I thought it was a Costco truck when we bought it, but it's actually it says Lego, but it's got like the Costco hot dog and like a little forklift, and it's really, really neat and fun. So anyway, he and I were working on this for the last couple of nights, and we finished it this morning. And it's so cool. It's really big, and it steers. The wheels steer. And the engine, if you open the hood, you can see the engine working. Anyway, it's fun. So that's what I did with my summer vacation. So I'm supposed to be finishing this row. Okay, what I'm working on right here is the One and Done shawl by Casapinka. Here's a picture of the pattern. Finished. And I am just hold on, 1, 2, 3. Hang on. One second. But this I'm making for Hannah's best friend's mom as kind of a thank you for just everything, because you know, we had graduation and I probably won't see her. So this is that beautiful yarn, Malabrigo yarn called Potion, and it will, when I'm done with it, like I said, you take the middle. It's like a rib. It's like a 3x3 rib. You can kind of see, and you take the middle of one of those ribs, of alternating ribs, and you drop them, and they make a lace all the way down. It's really cool. So that's what I'm working on here, because I finished Hannah's top, and here it is done. I added those extra inches I was talking about. It looks a little, this is like a picot edge, bind off edge. I actually found a typo in the, remember I was having trouble with it last week? I looked it up, and there was one other person on Ravelry that said, I'm surprised no one's asking about this, because it doesn't work mathematically. The way that she described the bind off in the pattern didn't work. And she had a tutorial you could go see, and I went to the tutorial, and the tutorial was different than the pattern was written.
Yeah.
So I found, is it Red River Knits, I think is what it is. I found her on Facebook, and I messaged her, and I said, can you please help me? This doesn't work. And she wrote back to me and said, I'm on vacation with family. As soon as I get back to a computer, I will answer you. And so I thought that was nice. And then in the interim, I started to look at it, and I realized that there was just a typo. And I tried it the way I thought it should be, and it worked. And I just bound off the whole thing. And then she wrote me back and said, there's a typo. Thank you for alerting me to it, and I'll fix it in the pattern. So that was nice that she responded. I'm sitting here taking cat hair off of this thing because it's full of cat hair. Anyway, so that's the bind off. It's a very stretchy bind off, because this is like a rib that kind of cinches in at the bottom of the top of the top, and so this bind off keeps it very stretchy. And for Hannah's sake, you see this? I duplicate stitched some dark yarn right here in the back, so she knows that that's the back of the neck, because she's always like, you need to put a tag, because I always forget. And this is actually kind of hard to tell the front from the back, but there is shaping in the front panel, so that it is a little bit lower. And so that's done. This is called the Seltzer by Red River or River City. I can't remember. I'll put the pattern up. But so that's Seltzer top, and that's done. And because I finished that, I started working on my professional knitter certification. Here's my notebook. I made a new notebook with this certification in it, and I put all the information in page protectors. And then I made a little worksheet. We have swatch worksheets, but I don't want to sully it, so I'm just writing on notebook paper notes about the first swatch. And I was having trouble because the first swatch is just stockinette, and it recommends size 8 needles. And I started the swatch twice, and I measured it on the needles, like just put the ruler up here. It's obviously not blocked, so it's not 100%, but even pre-blocked, I could tell I was getting too many stitches per inch. And it was half a stitch off, which over the course of many stitches can multiply out to a large difference in size if you're making a garment. So I emailed my coach, and I said, how much will that half a stitch block out? Can I stretch it, enough to make it fit to gauge? But in my heart, I already knew the answer, and I was like, I'm trying to avoid doing the whole swatch wrong and having to redo the whole swatch again, right? I just wanted to kind of test it as I go. And she was like, my best advice is to treat each swatch that you have to do for the assignments as a project. So swatch for the swatch. So I made this tiny little swatch, and I went up a needle size to a size 9, and this is not blocked, but I believe I got gauge with it. So, and I even got row gauge. She's like, don't worry so much about row gauge, just make sure the stitch gauge is correct. And so I went up to a size 9, and I finished this last night. And
so size 9 needles, are they bigger or smaller?
Bigger. So if you get too many stitches per inch, you have to use a larger needle, which feels counterintuitive. So you need less stitches per inch, you need a bigger needle because the stitches obviously are bigger, so they spread out across the inch, right? And so yeah, I had done the first swatching in size 8 needle, which is here, and it's really imperceptible. It's these are, oh my gosh, these are like metal on, it's black on metal. This is 5 millimeter, and the 9s are, size 9s are 5.5 millimeters. So it's half a millimeter difference.
So
Makes half a stitch.
many people, when they're starting out knitting, ignore the instructions to make a swatch to test how big it is.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's a scarf or something that it can be littler or bigger.
Right. But with a garment.
But if you're knitting a garment or something that's supposed to fit something like that, even, okay, your gauge matters.
Right.
So that it comes out the same. Just like
So you don't
you have to with
joke
cross
sweaters on the
with cross stitch, you have to be aware of the what kind of fabric you're using. Is
Right.
it 14 or whatever?
Because it affects the size.
Because you want to make sure you have enough fabric, so you need to know.
Right.
What
Or if you're
that
going to
is.
make a pillow, it's going to be a pillow this big or a pillow this big, you know.
Right.
And as part of the certification, one of the things my coach told me, she's like, when we created the course, the biggest thing that designers and yarn companies told us is that the samples rarely meet gauge. And if you don't meet gauge, you don't know that you have an accurate pattern, you don't know that it's going to fit. And I've gone through this a lot. Like, you probably remember a couple of hats I made. When I do Fair Isle hats, I need to remember that I need to go up needle sizes because they always wind up child size. Because Fair Isle is not very forgiving in terms of size, and because all those strands kind of pull your stitching
and every
in.
person is different.
Yeah.
Because if you're making your stitches really tight,
Right.
it'll make your gauge a lot smaller.
Well, so I, as a rule, knit pretty tightly, and so when I did the second pass, trying to use these size 8s, I was like, I'm going to be loose. But that's also not consistent, because if I have a large project and I'm not knitting the way I always knit, it's going to be inaccurate, right?
Yeah.
So I knew I was fooling myself, but I just needed her to say, just swatch for the swatch. So I swatched for my swatch. So here's my little preliminary swatch for swatch 1. And this is medium weight, and it's and I wound up using size 9s. And the other event that happened this week is that, you remember I was like, I'm going to return all this yarn because I ordered yarn. The squishy mail came. This is my my clear, one of my clear bags that I got because this was a sample of ones we were going to
symphony.
for the symphony, and my boss said, you want it? I'm like, yes, that's a perfect yarn bag. So the squishy mail came, and I didn't order medium weight because I already had this, and I ordered for the, let's see, I've got this for what's called sport weight size, oh wait, that's that. Oh, here it is. This is size 4 yarn, medium weight. This is size 3 yarn or DK. This is from Knit Picks. It's called Swish, and it's the color, I just had to look for solid light colors. It's the color called Arctic. And I wanted them all in different colors because I wanted to like be able to differentiate the swatches. And this is size 2, which is very, like, almost imperceptibly smaller. This is considered sport weight, size 2. And this is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes Wonderland Heather. Although they said no heathered yarn, but this is not that bad. So they can still, and actually this was one a color that they used themselves. So, because they want to advise against using crazy colors. And then for the number, I had to have 2 different kinds of number 1. I had to have, this is fingering weight Knit Picks palette, which is the same yarn that I'm knitting Hannah's Fair Isle sweater in. And this is the color Clarity, which is really pretty. And I got a lot of that. I got 4 of these, and I don't remember why. I don't remember why, but it's such a pretty color that, because I was like, I don't know, there's a lot of swatches in this size yarn, so I bought extra. Because not only do I have to make the swatch, I have to make all the mistakes on the swatches, so I figured I better have. And then there is a Fair Isle color work thing where you had to have contrasting, so I got this fingering weight stroll sock yarn from Knit Picks as well. So I got lots of squishy mail, and that's what I'm going to be doing with the next year of my life. And I'm already a little bit behind, but I'm going to catch up. Now that I made my swatch, I'm going to block it today and start on the new one. I'm trying to work on these first thing in the morning, trying to get up early before work and work on it, because I can't work on it when I'm sleepy. And I can't work on it out here because I realized probably when you're a professional knitter, they don't want cat hair all over the yarn. The other things I worked on, I did work on Hannah's sweater a little bit this week. If you remember, it's called Genevieve's Graduation Cardigan by, I can't remember who it is. It's in a book called Fearless Fair Isle. And this is where I am. It's coming along nicely, but I took an elongated break from it. So I hope this will be my evening fun knitting as well as that shawl.
Well, that's kind of what you have to do with like a big pattern or something.
So huge.
You have to just put it down.
I took it to Boston with me, and I worked on it there, and I came home and I just had to take a bit of a break, and I made her that top, and that's fun.
The palette cleanser.
Yeah, and then of course I've been working more on my hat, my Musselburgh hat. It's coming along. This is what I take to work with me because I can just sit and do it without thinking, just round and round and round and round she goes. I still need about 4 inches. And that tiny yarn takes forever. So I think that's me. Oh, I have to, well, I can tell it in stories. I'll tell you about that scarf on my Coke. So I'm done. So you're up, Beth.
Okay.
Dead air. There's dead air.
Dead air.
All right. Okay. I'm just trying to, so I don't lose my place. Okay, so this week, last Saturday, I worked on spring hair etching while we were filming our video, and this is by excuse me, Cecilia Turner of Heart and Hand. Back in 2020, she did a series of etching patterns, things. So I started on spring hair etching. It's my secondary chart for number 25 on WIP-GO, and I did just the the ear of this bunny, just a little bit of a start, because last week when we were filming it, I didn't leave out my project bag or the thread or even scissors or anything. So when I got to the end of the thread, I was like, well, I guess I'm done. So I picked it up the other day, like, I don't know, Wednesday, to work on it some more. And I did all of this vertical down here, and I did the bunny's tail and his little feet and all this, and I came back up this way, and I was coming up here and like, why does this not work? Because I put one stitch too many in one of the vertical lines, and so everything is off by
Because you're swatched, didn't it?
Because you didn't swatch.
Because I didn't swatch. so I had to sit there and check the pattern and everything to make sure that if it's one stitch over, you know, how's it going to come out? And I don't think it'll matter. The only thing that the only place you'd be able to tell is right here where the bunny's feet are. It would be, there's some tulips, so it'd be right up against the tulips. But I don't think it'll make that much difference. So that's the only place. And like there's a line on the bottom here that's sort of a border, you know, framing border thing. And I haven't decided whether I'm gonna, because it's even with the bunny's front feet. So I don't know if I'm gonna have it start even with his feet. I think I will just have it be, you know, also one stitch too long. But so anyway, so yeah. So I didn't quite finish the bunny's body. And this is 32 count Murano Carré. I get all my vowels mixed up. Murano Carré in Fleur. Excuse me. So then I also finished my cross-stitch camp piece, and that is Antique Cats and Crowns by Shakespeare's Peddler, Teresa Vanette, Kitten Stitcher. And so I did this. And originally, of course, it was charted in Jacaranda silk. It's a Gloriana silk color, but it's you know, brown, and I sort of brownish, blackish brown, dark brown. I know.
What's the called for fabric on that? Because what you did
Looks
came
like
out a
burlap.
lot bigger.
Yeah.
It looks like burlap.
No, it doesn't.
The called for fabric is 36 count gingerbread linen by Picture This Plus
Linen.
is the called for, and this is 28 count.
That's why
So
it's
yeah,
bigger.
yeah. So it's a lot bigger than.
Because you didn't swatch.
I didn't intend to. I was just looking for a fabric that would work. So and I usually and I very often stitch on 28 count just because it's, you know.
You like it.
Yeah. And, you know, I could have done 36 count, but, you know, I would have had to, you know, look for that. I didn't want to. Most of what I have is 28 or 32. And then, like, I have some very tiny things like 46. Well, I could have done it on that, I guess, but, you know, whatever. So.
No, I like it on what
Yeah.
you did. I just was like,
Yeah. It's just very
I could
big.
tell it was a lot bigger than what.
So our challenge was to take a monochromatic piece, which is what this is, and, you know, add a pop of color. And so very many people did like all in one color, you know, the called for plus one like one little figurine. Somebody did some kind of aquatic thing with, you know, seahorses and fish, whatever, and then like they did like one red motif in this little pattern. But what I chose to do was first of all I changed the cats to just Weeks Dye Works coal, so they would all be black, and then my pop of color is the etoile, and I did all the crowns in etoile, in this gold etoile, and it's C725 is the color. But it came out very nice. I like the way it looked. And then on this one little kitty down here, I did a few stitches in white because I love tuxedo cats. And so
Where?
right there, there's little bitty.
Oh, okay. It looks like it's just his
Yeah, you
legs
can't-
are long.
Yeah, you can't really see it, but it's there because I know
You
it's
know
there.
it's there.
Yeah. Well, and I thought about putting it like some white stitches on this kitty, and I just, didn't really think about it, didn't really decide until that one cat. So it's hard to see, but it's there. So that is Antique Cats and Crowns, and that's my June cross-stitch camp piece. And on Father's Day, which was last Sunday, I stitched a little bit more on this Wayfaring Stranger, which is a design I made for my dad, and that's here. And the words, I'm just going over Jordan, so that's the one sheep. Gonna go over Jordan. So yeah. And this is, I don't know what the count on this fabric is. It's something very small. But yeah, the border I did at some time, and it goes down to here. And so when I stitched it the first time I went through it, I was like, is it really that small? But it's because did I count this right? And I counted it and recounted it, and it's very small because the fabric is very small. And this was from Hobby Lobby. It's just called embroidery linen, and so I don't know what the count is. I don't know that I may have known at some point. I may have measured it, but it comes in these little. They have two sets. They have one that's kind of earth tones, like black, and there's a black and white and a couple of darker colors, and then there's one that is blues and greens and stuff, and that's what this is from. So, but they don't have it labeled with a count. But anyway, so I finished the words across the top where Wayfaring Stranger, because the last time I think I had gotten as far as Wayfaring, but had not put Stranger in there. And then there's another line here.
Not to be confused with Wayfair.
Yeah. I am a poor wayfaring stranger while traveling through this world below, is what goes above the green swatch here. And then I did some on this green, just the green beginning of this. There's two shades of green. So there's the dark shade on one side and a light shade on the other. So this is the dark side. I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going over home, and then it has my dad's name and dates on the bottom. So anyway, I worked a little bit on that last Sunday on Father's Day. And then the other thing, my main WIP-GO call for this is number 25, is The Reindeer by Cottage Garden Samplings. And so I worked on that. Last time I worked on it, I had just the antlers. I'm going to put this fabric here because of the sun. I had just done the antler, the darkest color on the antlers, which is the 37.99, is the DMC color, along with the ear and eye and mouth and nose of the deer. So I added all of this. You can't see it, but except here on the little curly cues on the antlers, I did the next DMC color. So it's 37.99 and 8.38. So they're 37.99 is a very dark gray, and 8.38 is a dark brown. So they're very close in color. They're hard to differentiate unless you're really, really looking at it. Like here in the sunlight, I can see the difference. When I'm stitching it, I'm like, I don't know where I am. I can't see it. So let's like. So the very bottom thing is that dark color, yeah.
Yeah, you need natural light.
So, but I did do a few other things. I did the little tree and the cabin. So the cabin is complete. And then I did, there's a little bit of very light, I don't know what this color is, like kind of a peachy color. Excuse me. I got cat hair or something in my mouth. So there's a little bit on top of this one of these curly T's here because I had a little scrap of thread and I thought, well, I can do that because this is not attached. There's just one little bit of this peaky color, like kind of out in the blue all by itself. So I thought, well, it's just enough thread to do that. But the main reason I had it out was because I was working on the cabin and I had this little piece left over, so I stuck it on this antler. And so then I've been working on the deer's face and body. So there's two Fancy Floss colors. There's a Gentle Arts Chalk and Weeks Dye Works Bright Leaf, and then the rest are DMC colors. So yeah, so it's coming along, and I have I think today is the 5th day. Yeah, I think the 5th day on this. So I have a couple more days to work on that. So maybe I can finish the antlers and then sorry, I've got stop it, cat hair in my mouth or something. I keep but
why are you licking cats?
just cat hair floating around.
Sorry.
No, it probably for me because I was telling Eve, I just put these pants on clean out of the laundry, and they were clean when I put them on, and then when I got in the car, I was like, why is there cat hair on me? It's just because it's cat hair is everywhere, But so yeah, so that's the reindeer.
I remember a secondhand clothing store, and when you take, I don't think it was Goodwill, but something like that. When you take clothes in,
They don't wash them.
you figure they're going to.
But
But I always wash clothes before, right?
Yeah.
And I had a person say, we can't take anything if it's got any pet hair on it, which meant they weren't washing it before they put it out.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I was like, gross, remind me not to buy anything here. Because you don't know that somebody washed it. You
Right.
just,
It's like I have an old oversized T-shirt thing that I had been sleeping. I had been using it as a sleep shirt, and because once upon a time it had like something rubbery, one of those like silk string kind of things, images on here, and it had little by little it had worn off. I've had it for years, right? So it's got holes and things like that, and it had a little hole in the armpit. But of course, nobody sees me at night. No, there's nobody looking at me. So if it's scrappy, it's okay. But then the other day when I went to take it off, or something, put it on, take it off, I caught my elbow on that hole and I went whoosh, and ripped it. I was like, well, I guess that's a piece of trash now. But then I thought, well, because we've been packing, and one of the things that my nephew's been doing is like he has a whole bunch of old shirts and blankets or whatever that so we can like pad boxes with it or whatever to fill the box up or whatever. So I thought, well, maybe I could use that for this T-shirt, but I thought I'm going to wash it first because I don't know when the last time I wore it. But so I washed it. So I thought I was torn between, am I going to throw it away? But then I thought, oh, maybe I can use her, to help with the packing, just pad stuff. But I thought, yeah, it needs to be washed first.
So I went to U-Haul. Sorry, don't mean to interrupt your thing here.
Oh, you're done?
When I went to U-Haul and I knew I needed boxes specifically for pictures and stuff that are big, right? And I got a big one and a bigger one. And both of them are packed to the gills with photographs and paintings or whatever. And there is still stuff laid out all over for me to put away in one of those. I was like, I grossly underestimated how many of these I would need.
Yeah. You can take them back. So if you buy too many,
I know, but I was trying not to spend that much money. I was trying to be frugal.
So last week I accused my poor cat Hobbs of stealing something, and so this is the Slurpee scarf I was talking about last week. I got it at 7-Eleven because I guess they have a little promotion with their Slurpees. The cups look like sweaters, you know. They're printed like sweaters, and so they sell these little scarves. And I just thought it was hysterical. And it turns out that I took it off the cup myself and put it kind of in the kitchen when I dumped the cup out and forgot that it was there. And I blamed Hobbs, so I'm sorry, Hobbs. But anyway, I thought that was funny. They had like a raspberry pink colored one, and they had this green. So that's my Slurpee scarf.
Every July on the 11th, they have free Slurpees. You know, 7-Eleven.
Oh, okay.
And so
I didn't know that.
We used to take our group to get a free Slurpee, and there we are. And you know, they're this big.
Yeah.
There we are, piling out of the car, going in to get our free Slurpee. I would always like buy a bigger one. Well, you know, it's a promotional thing to get people to come in.
Right.
It's not, come and get a free Slurpee.
Knit 2.
So, darn it.
Oops. 1,
Okay, so
2.
my mother used to have a phrase that said, when you clean, you find treasures.
Yes.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe the amount of stuff. I'm like, that's where that is.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get ready to get the piano in here. So I'm gonna,
I was over at U-Haul and I saw, oh, that's a piano type dolly. And they rent it.
no, I'm gonna actually hire a piano mover. So I already called one because I texted.
You want it to arrive in one piece.
That'd be nice. I texted my my colleague at the symphony, and I was like, he knows piano movers and tuners. So he gave me 2 names of piano movers and 2 names of piano tuners. So we're gonna get it situated. But I have to clean out that desk, and I have to clean out the desk that's where I work, my home office. Clean that space up, move my antique desk into my bedroom for my work at home. But I need to find a good like a cover for that desk so that my computer and monitor don't tear it up. You know?
Yeah.
I was wondering if you wanted that thing that Mom has on the top of the piano.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think we have any other furniture that would fit.
Yeah, sure. That'd be fine.
I'll try to remember to wash it first.
Yeah. So
you know, it's these things. We have an antique sewing machine.
That's really cool.
That, while I think it's wonderful, we don't have it up and displayed.
Right.
And I'm like, I really should see if I can sell this to somebody who would appreciate it, and maybe restore it some. All it
needs is a belt.
Yeah, I remember using it playing around using it when I was a kid. The little turtle thing on the bottom worked and everything, and I was like, yeah, I think we need to see who might want this, because while it's cool to have, we don't.
Yeah.
It should be out where people can see it, you know, and it's not. So
yeah.
And I know there's people that love that kind of thing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm trying to think about that. I think I'm gonna work on that today.
I was watching a couple of Flosstube things where people have had. There was a couple where people did like kit parade, because they have a whole bunch of kits, and I was like, oh yeah. That reminds me that I have a little box in my closet of kit things. There's maybe one or two in there that I kitted up, I think, but others are
Kits that you bought.
things that came as kits.
Oh.
Yeah, and so there's one I was thinking of. I haven't looked at that box because it's buried under some stuff. But I was there had been I had at one time had a Teresa Wentzler very detailed and complicated kit, and I don't remember, because I remember I was thinking about
I thought you gave it away.
giving that away. Yeah, I think I did finally.
I thought you gave it away like
Yeah.
one of your drawings.
Yeah, I think I did. I did a giveaway on my channel some time ago. So I think that one is gone, but I have. I know I have one that I bought that's like, I've seen a smaller version of it, but this is like a frog pile of frogs.
Oh.
And I still want to do it. There's something about it that I really like. That's very cute, but it's it's one of those things that's like, I don't know when I'm going to get to that, because I've got 40,000 other patterns. Some that I've started and some that
Very recently, I saw a pattern that I was like, oh, and I even looked it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, we're going to move. The last thing I need to do is put more stuff in the house.
It would be like that, where like you add one more little straw to the pile and the whole thing blows up.
Yeah.
As it is, I'm like, how can I pack this stuff where I can still get it whatever I
was
need?
going to say, I can get to
because
it. Yeah.
I don't know when the house is going to sell.
Right.
So I don't know what, for instance, Crossstitch Camp. I want to make sure I have whatever Crossstitch Camp thing is available. And yet, okay, but, and so I'm like, okay, I have to leave it all out.
Yeah. I've been looking like at Zillow, but there's no point in looking right now because we're not ready to move this minute, and
She does anyway.
yeah,
But it's
and,
fun. Looking at Zillow is fun.
Yeah, well, and part of it is that I'm sort of looking to see what's available in our price range that we're looking at, and the area that we're looking at and some of them I saw one that I couldn't believe. I was like, because it's really not that. It was under 400,000, I think. But it was a 4-bedroom. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, but there's got to have something wrong with it.
But yeah, so I've been looking at, and some of them have like an office area, or like a bonus room or whatever, and I'm like, because it would be really nice because we haven't had like, I guess we could have, if we had rearranged the house and everything, we could have had a craft room kind of, but we don't. We have had just craft stuff, stuck here and there. But it would be nice to be able to have, because I'm looking at houses that are similar, that have like a family room and a living room and a sort of dining area and a whatever. And so some of them, I'm like, oh, that would be really nice. So it would be nice to have those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's nice it's kind of fun to sort of daydream and see what's out there and what's, what the cost is, how much is there an HOA, is it not, whatever.
Yeah.
So
It is fun to look on Zillow. Whoa. Oh my gosh, my yarn fell. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, I don't like moving, and I'm not jealous of you at all.
Well,
I hate moving with a passion.
When I lived in Little Rock, I was getting ready to move out here. Well, and even before I moved out here, because I actually, in the last several years that I lived in Little Rock, one of the things I was idly considering is whether or not I could afford a house. And in those days, of course, I had a job, and but like, you always think about, well, as much as I'm paying for rent, what would I be paying for a house payment?
Well, and it's not just a house payment either. It's like,
all the
owning homes is no fun.
And so, but anyway, so I was idly thinking about that. And the thing I loved about Little Rock is there are a lot of, I love, when I first moved out there, I really loved old Victorian houses, and actually my first apartment, one of the things I was looking for was an apartment in an old turn of the century or Victorian period house. And the fun thing about Little Rock is that there are a lot of those old Victorian houses, some that are single family homes and some that have been turned into apartments. And the one that I had was very inexpensive because I had very little money for rent. And so my rent was very low. It was actually 200 and something.
Oh my gosh.
When I moved in. But my apartment was basically one big room plus a kitchen and bathroom. And so it was an efficiency basically. And the house next door, like I could kind of see in the windows as I walked or drove by there. And I loved it because it was very like a very good restoration. There was hardwood, you could see columns and things like that. And our turn of the century house was like carpeted over and the fireplaces were covered up and all kinds of, the only thing really authentic about it was the windows and the 12-foot ceiling,
Yeah.
And otherwise a lot of it was basically just, plastered over and covered up.
Yeah.
But there's also in Little Rock a lot of craftsman cottages, which after I got over my Victorian era phase, I loved the craftsman cottages.
Yeah.
A couple of my friends lived in them, and like there's one girl that I knew who I think she rented a house. I don't think she owned the house. I think it was a rent house. But she had a Halloween party or Christmas party or something at her house once, so I went over there and I'm like, oh my God, I love this house, and so it was always my daydream to live in a house like that, and so I used to look once you could look online at houses. There was one house that I felt like a stalker because I would drive by it. And look at it like, oh, I want that house. But it was listed on sale on Zillow or whatever, and so I could look at the pictures of it, and it was just like, oh, this would be so perfect. This would be so perfect. But it was one of those things. But I love that era, that 1930s, 1940s, and I could look at a house and say, that's craftsman,
there's in Albuquerque, I had a friend in college who I guess was renting a house just off of like...
Oh, the one that Carlisle and...
Yeah, Angela, do you remember her? That house, and it had these beautiful, those... it was like
rounded,
adobe, I guess, maybe, or I don't know, but it had like rounded doorways, and it was so cute.
The one...
Maybe it's because of my experience. When I hear Beth describing all of those things, all I can think about is bugs.
The one thing about
new houses have bugs too.
I know.
The one thing about in Little Rock, you're looking at those houses, was that you could kind of tell, and it's true today too. But like in those older houses like that, the Victorians and the craftsmen, is that you could kind of tell. Like the person that bought this house or owns this house, do they have cash on hand or not? Because like the apartment that I first lived in, and the Johnson house next door, it takes a lot of money to renovate and modernize these houses to where you can so you're not living in a falling down thing, and so you'd have one really nice house next door to a really run-down house. Or you'd have one block where all the houses are really great, and then the next block, they're all kind of run down. And part of it is, does the person who owns this house have the money to renovate it and modernize it, and, put in central air, whatever,
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. And so, yeah, so there were, and I remember there was a time when I lived in that turn of the century house, was around the time that I started working at Family Life. And down the street from me was this school, an old school building, and I can't remember the name of it now, but it was it was like 3 buildings attached to each other, right? And it had been an elementary school, I think. And so the front part of the building had been built in 18 something. So it was an old building. And so I think it was 2 stories in the front. And then there was a middle thing that had been, added on in the, I want to say in the 20s. And then there was a little back end that had been added on like in the 30s. So it was this, kind of a big building. But it had sat empty from the time I moved out there in 89 or whatever. And at one point, there was a wealthy man there in town, and he had bought that building and was gonna renovate it and into a single family home, a huge single family home. But so there was a fence around it, but those old buildings have asbestos, and this building had a lot of structural issues, and so he petitioned the city of Little Rock for permission to knock it down.
Oh, wow.
Because he wanted it, because it would have been, I guess, too expensive for him to fix it.
Right.
So he wanted permission to knock, because it was on the historic, register or whatever. You had to have permission to do anything like that. And so the city said, no, you can't do that. And so he sold it, and the company that bought it eventually was building apartments. And so their idea was to have an artists co-op, and they did spend a lot of money. Like they had to put these bolts in to keep the walls from collapsing outward.
My gosh.
Because to pull in the old part of the old building, and then they had to clean out all kinds of pigeon poop and things and they found a bunch of old school papers from students, yeah. But so in the end, they restored it very nicely. So the front part of the building, they had left the sort of, in the front and the middle parts, they had left the classroom rooms intact. And so, so in the front part of the building, they had really great hardwood floors, and they had used lights that looked like school lights, fluorescent kind of, lights, but they looked like what you would see in school, and very high ceilings and all that. But their idea was that you had to be an artist in the city, so you had to prove that you were employed as an artist of some kind, a musician, a painter, whatever. And so you had to submit that to prove that you were an artist, and then you had to have under a certain income. And so when I was reading about that, I thought, I qualify for that. I have, certain, low income. I work as a musician. But I had just started working at Family Life. And so you're supposed to submit your previous year's tax returns or whatever, but then also, I guess, something about your current income or something. And so when I submitted it, they said, oh yes, they approved me and all that. And they had an open house, and they invited all of us who were approved to pick an apartment, basically.
Dang.
So we went through the building, and I chose one in the basement because of affordability, right? And so, but it was nice. It had a fairly roomy kitchen, a big kitchen, and a separate bedroom, because a lot of them had sort of a loft area, sort of bedroom, like just a walls, basically, you know, walling it off, but didn't go all the way to the ceiling, that kind of thing. A room, half a room. But so this particular basement apartment, I thought that was really great. It has a separate room for the bedroom, and it has and it had like a weird cement slab on that sort of like set off the living room, like you would step up to your living room on this platform. So I had chosen that and all that, and then they had a woman there at that evening, and she was, you know, going over. She was some other kind of, you know, accountant, I guess, or whatever. And so she pulled me aside after that, and she said, "You don't qualify, because next year you'll make too much money because you have this." And I'm like, I've never made too much money in my life. But so, yeah, so you know, like, so I would have qualified
You're
here.
like, I'll quit my job.
But yeah, but not
That's
next year.
crazy.
You'd think they'd want people that actually could pay their rent.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. How am I supposed to pay my rent if I know, you know? But so I couldn't get the apartment. And actually, the guy, the developer guy who was, you know, promoting, it's like, well, you know, can you fudge it? Like I would lie on my application, like, no, I can't do that. But because, you know,
No, can't you fudge it?
Yeah.
You're the one who needs to fudge it.
so
Just to prove me.
So I couldn't get that apartment.
Oh my
And I was
gosh.
just heartbroken. I just cried all the way home, which was like a block away. But so I had to drive by that building every evening, you know, on certain routes home. And so I would look and I could see the lights, and I'm like, that person's living in my apartment.
Oh, man.
And then at some point, I started noticing that I didn't see the lights on here, because, you know, it was this little basement apartment. It was
Right.
on the grassy side. There's the parking lot side and the grassy side, right? Mm-hmm. And so then, so that apartment building had been open for a year, and there was an article in the paper about this, and I thought, oh, you know, there's the Kramer School. That's what it was. So there was an article about it, you know, how's it been after a year? What's it been like? Blah, blah, blah. And that apartment that I had wanted had a flooding problem. Because right outside the windows, and I had noticed it beforehand, and I was a little bit concerned, but, you know, I wasn't too concerned. But right outside the window is the gutter that comes off the roof, and there was a drainage thing. But apparently it had some kind of leakage problem, because when it rained, it leaked into that bedroom of that apartment. And so they had to move that person to a different apartment. And I thought,
What is it Dad used to always say?
thank you, God, for preventing me from moving into that apartment.
Right. No, Dad used to always say, the Lord takes care of stupid.
Yes. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm so thankful. And then not too long after that, this apartment building that I had seen, you know, in the years when I first moved to Little Rock, there were some friends of mine that lived in an apartment in this other building, and I loved their apartment as well. I loved that building, what little I saw of it, and you know, but it was one of those things. And then there was one summer there was a fire in that building, and they had, the owners, I guess, I don't know if they weren't insured or whatever, but they had decided not to reopen that building, not to fix that building. And so it sat idle and open to the elements and, you know, and everything for a long time. And then this company bought the building and they renovated. And I remember I used to drive by it, and they had put a fence around it.
Beth the stalker.
And it said, you know, opening fall of blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, oh, and it had a phone number, and I scribbled the phone number on a piece of paper as I was, you know, driving home. And
You were writing as you were driving? Shame on you.
you know, and so, but then I lost the piece of paper. I didn't call right away, and I couldn't find the piece of paper, and they took the sign down.
You're like, darn it.
And I think the reason they took the sign down was it was right around the time of one of the presidential elections, 2000, I guess. No.
Anyway.
so I guess they must have gotten a bunch of phone calls about it, because then they took the sign down like right away. And so I waited and waited and waited, and then finally there was a banner hung up on there from the upper windows that had the phone number on it. So I chanted the phone number all the way home, and then I wrote it down. And then the very next day I called, and they said, "Oh yeah, let's we can fax you over of some floor plans and stuff like that." And so that's the building I moved into.
And then it caught on fire.
And then it caught on fire. But it was, I loved it because it had an inside entrance as opposed to the outside entrance of my first apartment. So the inside entrance, it had tile in the kitchen, hardwood floors in the living room, and then carpet in the bedroom. And there was more closet space than you could shake a stick at, and more cabinet space in the kitchen.
It's a nice place.
Yeah, it was a very nice. The only drawback that it had was I didn't have my own washer and dryer, but I've never had my own washer and dryer till I moved out here. But so, but other than that, I loved it. I loved it. And it was all I lived downtown in Little Rock all my life. So when I first moved there, I lived here, and the second apartment was like 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
But it was perfect. It was wonderful. So yeah.
Talking about looking at houses, we're trying to figure out where we're going. We're going on a trip in July. We thought about camping, and then I'm like, I don't think I can do camping this year. And so we're looking at cabins. And the other night we were looking and looking, and finally I'm like, I can't look anymore. I got cabin fatigue. Like, we don't have a favorite place. Well, we don't want to go too far. And then we don't really have a favorite place. Like, I want to find a cabin that's like, that's our cabin that we go to whenever we can, But I still haven't. We've stayed in a lot of cabins, kind of all over. But I've not been like...
Traumatized us with that forest cabin.
Oh, come on.
Actually, the area was beautiful.
The one outside of Sedona?
Yeah, that was forest. It was a forest ranger cabin that you can rent. I guess they rent them out. I didn't know. That was a cool building. It was also like a stone building that was built, this era, and then added, and it slept like...
Yeah, it was one time it was a
farm. But you could see daylight through the door back where our bedroom was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a crack like that big.
Yeah, that's called a cabin. Yeah, everyone was freaking out because there were bugs. But it was beautiful.
A gazillion million scorpions.
Yeah, and then on the back porch you had that just a perfect view of
Yeah.
Cathedral Rock and.
Well, from our room, we had a big picture window, and you could see. Yeah,
Cathedral Rock in Sedona, really beautiful. But
in the servants' quarters, we were in the servants' quarters.
Yeah, by the kitchen.
Yeah,
get busy
on the other side of the kitchen.
Yeah, no, because we were in a room with had a little balcony out the back, so it was built like on the side of a hill. So the front was just you drove up to it, but then in the back the land just dropped away. And we had a little porch outside, and at night. I turned the light on, and there was a tarantula sitting on the porch. And I had turned the light on, it went doo 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 underneath. So I turned the light off, and then a few minutes later, I turned it on again, and he was still there. He was there again, and he went doo 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 doo. So I played with the tarantula outside. No, we saw a lot of wildlife.
Yeah,
we saw a coyote, we saw a skunk, we saw this. Remember the praying mantis that stayed on the window all day, and then it was like huge.
Yeah. And the scorpions.
And the tarantula. Yeah. I liked it. It was a nice...
I didn't mind the other bugs. It was scorpions that were because there were a whole bunch of baby scorpions, and so the dog couldn't even sleep outside.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal.
Yeah, it was a bit scary because I got up in the middle of the night and just happened to see a little scorpion on the rug right outside the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah.
And there was one in the
because like our bedroom was here, and the back door was here, and the bathroom door was here, and it was right there.
Yeah, yeah, it was kind of. But the next cabin I took you to was great.
Oh yes,
in Greer, we love that. You can see that episode if you go searching back. It's called something like Here We Go, a glamping.
Yeah, it was a beautiful cabin.
That was nice in Greer, Arizona, but that's too far for this trip. So I don't know. We can't find where we want to go. So it's sad. I got to figure it out today.
We were talking about Grandpa Eli on the way over here, and one of the things I remember,
this is our father's father.
Yeah, in those days we used to go camping in Santa Barbara, which is a campground there in New Mexico, and I remember it used to be that you could drive up pretty close to the river. There was like a little creek,
yeah,
and then the river. And so I remember Grandpa guiding my dad, we had a pickup truck with a camper on the back, and my grandfather, we had gotten there like late in the middle of the night, and so my grandfather was like guiding my dad, to drive the truck over the little creek into the, so he was out there like, come this way, come that way, to avoid the rocks or whatever. And also I remember Grandpa and I walking along that little trail by the river, and he was pointing out some, I guess it was kind of like what you would call wild celery, but it's very tiny. And Grandpa and I were like, chewing, eating that wild celery, which is probably not a very good idea to be eating random wild stuff.
Well, he knew what it was. He knew
yeah.
what it was. No, I have a memory when I was a child, sitting in the front of Dad's truck, and we getting to Santa Barbara in the dark because we always had to wait till Dad got off work or whatever. And Mom was sitting next to me, and Dad would drive a little ways, and then he'd get out and he'd go into the, in front of the truck and like look at the ground to see where he could drive it. And I remember feeling horribly terrified. Because I guess you guys were in the camper, and I was up there with Dad and Mom, and he would get out and he would walk, and he would start to walk toward the edge of the light, of the circle of the headlights, and I'm just like, something's gonna come out of the dark.
And
I was always
scared. in Santa Barbara there was a place where you drove like this.
Yes. Or he'd have to cross a little creek or something, and the whole camper would
I think it was the same year of the moon landing, because Dad was listening to it on the radio, and we were going to go to a lake, and to get down to that lake, I swear he drove straight down like this, and I was like, we're going to wreck.
I remember riding in the back of the camper. It was one of those with it over the camper,
over the cab bed,
and and so we would ride up there a lot of times, and on that road to Santa Barbara, when you get up close to the campground, it's a dirt road, and then
on the side of a mountain.
On the side of the mountain, and so on one side, it's like in some places, it's like a sheer drop down, and the road,
and then you're way up there, like and you feel...
and so it would, we'd be up there, and it would feel like the truck was about to go off the edge of the road, It's like, it was very scary.
I think that's where I developed my fear of pitch black darkness. Like, I really dislike...
It wasn't at the bottom of the Carlsbad Caverns?
No. No, I because I remember when we'd sleep at night,
Yeah.
That was in the days, nowadays when you go camping in a campground, because it wasn't as developed back then.
Yeah.
But when you go camping in a campground, you can look out and almost always see someone else's,
their tent light
or something. But I just remember sleeping up in that upper bed and waking up in the middle of the night, and I don't know why I love camping so much, because the middle of the night in the mountains is always difficult
Very
for
scary.
me. It's always hard. And I'm always like, when is the sun gonna come up? This night is too long and I'm too cold.
Especially when there's a gigantic animal in your...
I remember looking out, like laying on my stomach, looking out the side windows of that upper bunk, looking into the dark, like there's going to be... I was terrified that something was going to come.
When I was a kid, we went to Colorado, and I don't know how old you were. But we went to Colorado.
I have no memory of going to Colorado with Mom and Dad.
With Mom and Dad, and I think Grandpa.
Grandpa Eli.
and my Aunt Charlotte, all my dad's sisters.
Isn't that when we went
And-
up to the property?
Yeah, yeah. My grandfather owned it was like a mine up there.
In Colorado.
Yeah. And so we went up to that property and we spent the night up there, I guess. But so I don't know who all was, all of my cousins or whatever were among that group, but we were telling ghost stories or something. And it was the old ghost story about the hook claw thing that, like, you wake up in the morning and there was a claw on the door or on the car door or whatever. But anyway, so we had been telling all these ghost stories and blah blah this, and but I remember, like, when the sun was going down, seeing on the horizon like these trees, right, and going, is that a bear? What, it was like, because there was like shapes, whatever, and I was just terrified.
Yeah.
My uncle ran into a bear.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Walked right
in
up.
Santa Barbara, of all places. Yeah.
I want to go tent camping, but I think this is probably not the year to do it.
It's too much work.
Well, I don't mind the work, and I really do love it, but it's, yeah, I think it's too much. Yeah, for a lot of reasons, but so I think we are gonna try to find a cabin, but I kind of want to find one near water, but then that's really hard, and I don't want to go too far because I don't want it to be too far a drive right now. It's just anyway, such a dilemma. But we've stayed in some really beautiful cabins. We stayed in one up in Groom Creek up near Prescott, which I call it it had the kitchen under the stairs. It was like this tiny little kitchen like this, where it had like a sink, like 2-burner stove, and like no counter, and it had a sink but no disposal, and it had the rest of it was beautiful. It had a beautiful loft upstairs, and it had like a bedroom that had been added on, and then a nice living room, and it was like a really cool dining area, and then an enclosed porch, and right across from this was like, I guess, this family's old cabin that family had owned for years, and then they brought the property right there's like a little creek that sometimes runs when there's lots of rain or whatever, and there's a wooden walk bridge, and then right across was the family's house, which was gorgeous. It was this gorgeous mountain house, like
a chalet.
and I would sit in that little cabin and look at that house. I'm like, but and then we stayed in one called Little Red up in Heber Overgaard, which was a tiny little house. Didn't have a dining table, so we ate our meals sitting around the coffee table. And it also had a tiny little kitchen and 2 bedrooms. So that was nice. Had a little yard, but it was kind of in a neighborhood, which I don't really.
Not the mountains.
I don't really like. But it was cool, weather and
Well,
stuff.
that one we stayed
enjoyed
at
it.
with Dad,
In
it
Greer?
was kind of a neighborhood. It was a cabin neighborhood.
Yeah, but we had the river right there outside the door, which he
Yeah, we
liked.
did, and it was nice, and Dad really enjoyed
Yeah,
that.
and then we drove up into Greer, all the way up into the end of the road, and got out, and you could walk the river up there. It was really nice.
I think we need
Grandpa up
to
there.
go ahead and wrap up.
Yeah, we've been talking a while. So thanks for joining us. Mid-June, late June.
Yeah,
June just
probably
over.
20-something.
It's the 22nd today.
Hannah's coming to town. She's in California right now, which is fun. And then she's coming here, and so I've got to clean her room. Her
When's
room
she
right
coming?
now is a disaster. The 5th. So her room is a disaster. So I need to clean it, and I need to get ready to receive a piano at some point in my life. And I have to go to Costco today, and I don't have to go to the yarn shop, which I've been doing every week now. Don't have to go to the yarn shop, but yeah. So busy week ahead for me at work. I have 4 concerts off site that I'm basically running for the symphony, and at retirement centers up north and all over. So I've been working on that at work, and we're basically promoting the season, and I'm there to sell tickets if they want to buy them right there. So as a convenience, but so it's like elaborate and lots of driving and busy week ahead.
A cellist friend of mine, you know, he posted on Facebook something about, you know, a couple of concerts that he'd done, and I think in Northwest Arkansas or something like that. And in one of them, there was a guy playing the bassoon in this little group. It was a nonette little group that he played it, and I was like, "Who's that guy?" You know, like, wait, that's a bassoonist. Who's that? Do I know that person?
Oh,
What?
somebody from here in Phoenix made the Olympic team in swimming.
Oh, really?
Higley High.
Cool.
Mm.
That's exciting.
I saw that and went,
We'll have to watch.
Yeah.
Oh, Top Chef just ended, and the guy I wanted to win won. I'm so happy. Danny won. People complained because it looked like in the editing that Dan, the other guy, had done better. Like, you know, you'd like, this course was better. You know, Dan did better. This course, Danny did better. You know, like you kind of keep score. But I think Danny 100% should have won. He was phenomenal. So I'm glad he won. I'm not complaining. But we love Top Chef here. I realize this is the 21st season. Mark and I have been watching that show for 21 years. Like, that blows my mind. Like, I love that show. And also The Bear is coming out. It's almost out. The Bear season 3. If you have not watched The Bear, go back on Hulu, watch season 1, then watch season 2, which is so far the best. And then season 3 is starting any minute. I'm so excited. So we have our plans for the week, and we will see you here, same time, same place next week. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for all our new subscribers.
Yeah.
And we're inching toward 500, and that's very exciting. So tell your friends so we can get up to 500, because we always do something special at those milestones.
well, that's a super milestone.
500 is a big milestone. So we've always, in the past, we've done giveaways and stuff like that. So we always celebrate. So help us.
Keep in mind that we have a lot of stuff to move, so we may want to go ahead and just...
Thanks so much for joining us. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.